Most of us were taught that Guernica speaks for everyone. But who taught us that? And who really benefits from teaching it that way? My grandmother survived the Bangladesh Liberation War. She hardly talks about it, but when she does, she always keeps it simple. Hiding in the dark while soldiers search around her, the smell of smoke thick in the air, and neighbors disappearing overnight. You can't understand unless you actually lived it, she says. The fear that you wouldn't be able to be alive to see tomorrow. War isn't a symbol. It isn't universal. It's a specific, terrifying, and real thing. Picasso painted Guernica in 1937 after Nazi bombers destroyed the Basque town of Guernica. Hundreds of civilians had died that day. The town burned for 3 days straight.
The quaintly beautiful Spanish towns and countryside crumbled under the ravages of bitter warfare. Barcelona and Madrid came under sieges that wreaked unbelievable havoc on millions of people. The maelstrom of civil war pitted fiercely loyal Spaniards against one another in a battle to the death.
Communist Party. MoMA couldn't display such a radical anti-fascist statement without upsetting the audiences. So, thus, the painting was neutralized. Labels presented it as a great abhorrence of war, stripping away the politics and enigmas of Franco, the horror of that Basque town. Its suffering was made universal instead, but only because the museum decided whose story was allowed to matter. This is the theft of Guernica, not stolen with bombs or brushes, but with interpretation. Its meaning had been controlled, curated, and marketed for nearly 90 years by institutions that display it, and it continues to do so. Let's take a closer look at the painting. On the left, a mother can be seen storing her head back in grief, holding a lifeless child. Her scream echoes through the terror of civilians caught within the war. A large white bull stands nearby, a silent witness to the destruction that's happening. Beneath them, a soldier lies dismembered, carrying a broken sword. In the center, a horse screams, pierced by a spear, its agony frozen in time. On the right, 3 women move through the chaos, one emerging from a window with a lamp, another caught in flames, and a third rushing towards the light. All faces are twisted in horror, mouths wide, and tongues like daggers. Picasso stripped away any political markers that can be seen. No swastikas, no Spanish flags, and no uniforms. And yet the figures convey suffering that could belong to any war, anywhere. This ambiguity allowed institutions to recast the painting for their purposes. Scholars call this universality. Some, like Exfra and Heth, argue that it allowed the painting to reach a global audience, mobilizing outrage against fascism beyond Spain. But others, like Chouet, caution this universality also strips the painting of context. Reproduction, posters, exhibitions, each one pushes the work further from its origins. At the Basque town, the Republican government, the victims themselves, they disappear. Institutions don't just display art, they curate meanings. And in doing so, they decide whose suffering is remembered and whose is erased. Take MoMA, for example. When Guernica arrived, it was radical, political, and dangerous. Alfred Barr, the museum director, needed to pacify for American audiences during the Cold War. Labels were rewritten, context was stripped, Picasso's anti-fascist intentions were downplayed. The painting became a neutral symbol of suffering, safe, universal, marketable, and removed for the very events it was meant to witness. Calling the suffering universal sounds generous, but it can erase the people who actually suffered. My grandmother's memories remind me, real witnessing is personal, specific, and true. Guernica doesn't need museums to speak for it. It needs us to remember for who it was painted for and who has been written out of its story. So that next time you go to a museum, don't just believe everything you see. Ask who's telling the story and who might be missing from it. Then you will know the full picture.